Okay, so today what we're going to do is we're going to look at the second part of the trigonometry review, and let's jump into it. So the first one we're going to look at is the cosine of theta equals negative 3.18. I'm going to ignore the negative for currently, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to make a new triangle, or I'm going to make a right triangle where the ratio of the sides, so I'm going to write the cosine of this equals this over 1, right? I'm going to turn it into a fraction. And then I'm going to label my sides. So cosine is adjacent over hypotenuse. So I'm going to write this one as 3.18 and this one as 1. And what I'm going to do now is I'm going to go figure out what this side is using Pythagorean's theorem. So I can say, let's call that side y. So I can say y squared plus 0.318 squared equals 1, and I can solve for y. So let's do that. So I'm going to get y squared equals 1 minus 0.318 squared, which means y is going to be equal to plus or minus whatever that value is. So let's go and figure that out real quick. So 1 minus 0.318 squared and I get y is equal to plus or minus, and I'm just going to use the positive root right now. So I'm not going to say plus or minus. I'm just going to use the positive root, 0.948. And the reason I'm using the positive root is it can't be a negative root because it represents the length of a side. Okay, so now I know what y is. Let's go to tangent of theta. So tangent of theta is y over x. Well, y is this value, x is this value, so I'm going to take y divided by x, so I'm going to take 0.948 and divide it by 0.318, and that gives me looks like 2.981. Next, I'm going to go find the secant of theta. So let's see. Secant is secant is hypotenuse over adjacent. So secant is 1 divided by 0.318, which is approximately, let's make those approximate signs, which is approximately 5.556. Whoops. Actually, I plugged that into my calculator wrong. Let me do that again. So it's 1 divided by 0.318, which is 3.145. Let's just make sure I didn't plug. Yeah, it looks like I plugged that in correctly. Okay, that's going to be the idea for the first couple. So let's keep on going here. And again, if you're doing this, hopefully you've already done this, but if you haven't already done this, you're having difficulty, what you should do is stop the video here and kind of repeat the process what I did in problem number 1. So let's go through number 2. So again, I'm going to make a triangle, a right triangle. And now let's see, tangent, I might need more room. Let's move that over. So let's see, tangent is opposite. So if this is theta, tangent is opposite over adjacent. So it is, if I turn this into a fraction, then this is going to be 0.794 divided by 1. And we're going to have to figure out what that is. So again, I'm going to use Pythagorean's theorem. So I'm going to say 1 squared plus 0.794 squared equals r squared, and I'm going to solve for r. And I get r equals plus or minus 1.003. But again, I want the positive root, so r equals 1.003. Nope, I plugged in the calculator. Again, I plugged in it incorrectly. Let's try that one more time. So I got r equals 1.277. Let's just make sure again that I plugged that in correctly. 1.71 plus 0.794 squared raised, yep, okay, looks good. So now I know what r is. So r is 1.277. So now let's go answer the question. Cosecant. Well, cosecant is opposite, well, it's hypotenuse divided by opposite. So it is 1.277 divided by opposite, which is 0.794. And that's going to be approximately looks like approximately 1.608. And then in order to find cosine, well, cosine is adjacent over hypotenuse, so that's 1 divided by 1.277, which gives me approximately 0.783. Okay, let's continue. So we're going to use this diagram to find all these values. So tangent of A. So tangent is opposite over hypotenuse, so it equals 3 over 8. Cosine is adjacent over hypotenuse, so we do need to figure out what the hypotenuse is. So I'm going to say 8 squared plus 3 squared equals, I'm going to call this r, so r squared. So 64 plus 9 equals r squared. So that's going to be the square root of 73 equals r. So cosine is going to be 8 over the square root of 73, which when we rationalize it, so I'm going to multiply both top and bottom by the square root of 73. Gives me 8 root 73 over 73. Let's do sine. So sine is going to be opposite over hypotenuse, so that's going to be 3 over root 73, which again, when we rationalize that denominator, is going to be 3 root 73 divided by 73. Oops, I did the wrong thing. I'm sorry, it was supposed to be angle B. I did mess up. So let's do that one more time. So looking at angle B, we're doing the sine of angle B. So the opposite is going to be 8, and the hypotenuse is again r over 73. So it's 8 over root 73, which we already did in the beginning in problem B. So our answer is 8 root 73 divided by 73. Again, we were using this angle, so the opposite is that, the hypotenuse is that. Okay, continuing. We're going to find the measure of angle A. So in order to find the measure of angle A, I need to set up one of my trig functions, or I'm going to set up an equation. So I'm going to say the measure, well, actually, I'm going to say the tangent of angle A equals, well, that's opposite divided by adjacent. So then we can take the arctangent of both sides. Whoops. Arctangent of both sides. And that's going to be equal to the measure of angle A. So at this point, we're plugging it into our calculators. And I am going to get, let's see what I'm going to get. Have to remember how to plug into my calculator. I get, this is approximately 20 point, we'll say, how about to the nearest 100th? So 5-6 degrees. Okay, continuing, we are asked to convert angle measures to degree, from degrees to radians. So this is 43 degrees. So remember the way this works. I'm going to take 43 is to 180. So 43 degrees is 180 degrees. As x degrees is to, as x radians is to pi. So solving this, I'm just going to go here. 43 pi equals 180x. In order to solve for x, I'm going to divide by 180. So I'm going to get when I'm finished. Let's move this over just a little bit. So what I'm going to get is this becomes 43 pi divided by 180 radians. Next, we're going to convert 120. So again, I can use that same method if I want, or I can recognize this is kind of one of our ones that we've done before for our unit circle one, so it should be a little bit more comfortable for us, and that's going to be 2 pi over 3. But again, if you wanted to, you could just use this idea again. Let's continue. 5 pi, so this is for number 5, I could again do what I did before with 120. This happens to be one of our ones for our unit circle that we should know really well, but in case you're having difficulty, I want to kind of go through the process both. I'm going to go through the process like I did in the first part in A for number 4. So let's see we don't know how many degrees, so I'm going to just say x degrees is to 180 degrees as 5 pi over 6 is to pi. Doing our cross product, I get pi times x equals 180 times 5 pi over 6. So 180, let's do that. So 180 times 5 pi over 6, which is going to be 150 pi. Dividing pi to both sides, or canceling out a pi on both sides, I get x equals 150 degrees. Okay, again, this was one of our angles that we should have just kind of known using our unit circle, but you didn't have to do that. Okay, that wasn't something we had to do. Let's do 11 pi over 12. So same idea. So again, I don't know how many degrees, so I'm going to say x is to 180 as 11 pi over 12 is to pi. So this gives me pi x equals 180 times 11 pi over 12. So pi times x equals 180 divided by 12 is 15. 15 times 11 is 165. So 165 pi. Dividing both sides by pi, I get x equals 165 degrees. And that's part 2 of the review.